Okay, so
I'm recording, so hopefully my computer doesn't crash. So we'll see.
yeah. Okay, then let's just go ahead. So let's go through the game first that you sent me.
Okay.
It's an interesting one for various reasons. One is it's a pretty rare opening line, the so-called check defense. Um, Probably you have never faced it before. It's pretty rare, or did you face it in a game? Did you, or was it completely new to you?
This I've seen this opening. I think I've seen it 3 times at this club over the last couple of years.
Yeah, it's fairly rare and it's not particularly great, but it's one of those opening lines where black hopes that white has no specific preparation. Because if white doesn't have any specific preparation, black is likely getting away with it, which is kind of what happened in the game.
Right.
As you already put it in the notes, you made some notes and you sent them to me. The move f4 is the best scoring move in the position, and it is also quite by some margin the best move in the position. This is one of those cases where you have this typical thing that coaches say, yeah, you should not study that much openings, like if you are below whatever IM level, or it's sometimes they have crazy figures there. But this is one of those cases where knowing F4 and like one or two ideas is a huge difference because after F4, white is quite significantly better. And black really struggles to stay in the game. They can definitely stay in the game. It's not like lost, but it's narrow. It's a narrow path. What they usually do is they play queen to a5. Your opponent also played queen to a5 quite unnecessarily, but very likely would have played the same thing. And then you get something like this here covering e4, and then black usually goes e5. So they prepare this pawn push with the queen, yeah, on the fifth rank. It's a bit strange. But what you want to do is basically never take on e5, but keep the tension in the center and increase it with knight f3. And this is a pretty nice position for white. It continues quite a bit. They can play bishop g4, for example, or knight d7. But simply having the f pawn involved gives you far more dynamic possibilities. And in some cases, the queen even ends up being oddly placed on a5 because it had this direct tactical idea with the pin, like with the knight attacking e4. But once castled, the queen starts to look silly on a5, and black will often move it again. And you have a very nice central control with this f4 move. It is actually pretty difficult after knight f3 to yeah, to play for something significant. But you can after the normal reaction is bishop g4. That's what they normally play here when you go h3, and you can try to gain a lot of space here. This is also kind of interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
but he played queen a5, which is a bit of an odd move. I've never seen it in this position. Um, Maybe he also didn't quite have a preparation ready and was just like making things up. But it is an
I can say that he's typically a Sicilian Dragon player,
uh-huh.
but he told me after this game that he played this because he was just avoiding my prep because
Okay.
I tend to score pretty well against him when he plays the dragon. So he was just playing this to
Yeah.
get out of book.
It's a bit of a surprise weapon, and
Yeah.
that worked quite okay. So queen a5, you played bishop d3, which is likely the best move. You also mentioned bishop d2 in the notes, which is a move I don't like much, and
Okay.
it you played basically the same thing. I think on the next move, right? Yeah, it is the next move. The problem is that the bishop is not doing that much on d2. You're kind of setting up this discovered attack by the knight, but none of the knight jumps are particularly dangerous. We can see it after e5 when you went bishop d2. I would suggest either castling or maybe h3. This is also a move to consider because black might be able to play bishop g4, and then this pressure combined on the knight and on d4 could be a little bit annoying. And even if black maybe in some cases just trades on f3, they still manage to get this bishop on c8 some out and do something with it. This is an idea that h3 would prevent. So this is by far not as energetic as the f4 idea earlier, but I feel this is more problematic for black as it's not clear where the bishop is going to go. And the bishop d2 move, I mean, that's not a mistake because it doesn't give up anything, you're not worse, but it's a little bit, I think, of an empty move because you're not threatening much with it.
Okay.
So let's say knight to d5, for example, they will just probably
Queen
go
d8.
back.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what he did is he immediately withdrew to c7. Yeah, this is also definitely an option for black because you think in the long run the queen will probably not stay on a5 anyway. And from here, it does support the e5 pawn. Yeah, and now it's a bit of a tricky situation, yeah, because you don't know if they're going to castle quickly or not. And I think from what I learned from your annotation, that you were worried that they might not castle at all, or you were unsure what to do.
Yeah.
Is the right way to put it?
Yeah. Yeah. So definitely, I was thinking that castling's probably like a good idea in most positions, including this, right? Bishop e7 and just castle. But I know that in positions like this, often black may want to delay castling. They might want to start pushing like b5, b4, and try to put some pressure on
Yeah.
e4. All sorts of different ideas, right? And maybe those ideas aren't so, or yeah, like g5.
Mhm.
Maybe those ideas aren't good. Like maybe they're not objectively good, but I don't have a good understanding of a plan. I've been burned by this opening so many times where I tried to, you know, cause problems immediately because they weren't castling, and I feel like black can set themselves up pretty solidly with the king in the center in positions like this, and it can be hard to break through. And I don't know if it's just a lack of patience on my part or what, but I was worried that the position was not going to play into my hand as far as skills that I think that I have. Right, like attacking
Mhm.
a castled king to me is much simpler than dealing with a king that's doggedly staying in the center. So yeah,
One problem that is definitely yeah, well known in this structure, it's not so easy
right,
to find a very straightforward plan for white. If black is simply maintaining the tension in the center, like if you look at the center pawns, it's a situation where with white, we probably never want to take on e5 as simply it helps black
right,
get bishop on f8 better and so on. That means we probably have to keep this tension. But if we keep the tension in the center, we have a bit of a hard time to do something that feels substantial. Yeah,
yes,
because how to change the pawn structure. So we probably cannot change it anytime soon. Soon we have to think about two things: improve our own pieces, and also think about prophylaxis. What black maybe wants to do. So as long as we manage to keep the opponent's options down or keep them passive, because their position is by definition a little bit passive, as we have d6 against the d4 pawn. So oftentimes it's about making small improvements and preventing possible active ideas by the opponent. And then as a kind of slow accumulation, we can maybe manage to make more out of it. But it requires quite a bit of patience. This position is very similar to a Philidor's defense,
right.
yeah, where you get something like, for example, if you get something like this, that would be a mainline Philidors. It's the same structure. And if you imagine black playing bishop e7, c6, and so on, you get to almost the same thing.
Right.
You have a bishop on d3 and a bishop on d2. It's a small difference, but the general structure is quite comparable.
Yep.
And these are not easy to play. When I wrote my Keep It Simple E4, the second version, I made a switch there. In the original course from 2018, I had bishop c4, and in the latest one from last year, I switched it to a funny move. I just want to show it briefly without exploring it too much.
Sure.
I switched to this weird move. The idea is to quickly start an attack, and the huge advantage from a practical point of view, besides the surprise value, is that you have a very clear idea what to do. We just want to attack on the king side. We're not castling anymore. So that makes it very or much more yeah, understandable what we want to achieve. These maneuvering positions, the kind of a thing that you got, are tricky. They're really
Yeah.
tricky. And I think you make some smaller inaccuracies, and that makes it pretty quickly okay for black. One of the inaccuracies is this queen e2, I think, because this is a bit of a non-move. It doesn't do anything,
Okay.
really. I mean, you said the move cannot be wrong. Yeah, it won't hurt you immediately, but it has some drawbacks. We see in the game later that there is some action on the e file when the queen was actually very badly placed. That was a pretty harsh example actually of the queen being wrong on e2. But another thing that is, I think, from a strategic point of view, more important is that one piece that is currently misplaced, or what do you think? What pieces are misplaced currently in your camp?
The bishop on d2.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, the thing is, it would probably never, like, whatever. I'm sorry, if I was wrong. Wherever you would put it, it doesn't do much anywhere. Like C1, E3, G5, they're all not a huge difference. Bishop is not effective here. But a more serious issue is the knight on C3.
Okay.
This is a misplaced piece because what do you look at? You just look at protected squares. Whenever the knight on c3 is yeah, playing against a pawn on c6, the knight is basically dumb. It doesn't do anything. And one thing to improve your position would be to get the knight, for example, to g3,
Yeah.
where you would look at the f5 square. It would still prepare, or sorry, still cover e4. This is the positive side of the knight. It supports the center. But I would much more prefer to have it on g3 in the game. You got it via d1 to e3. That's also an interesting square. But on those spots, e3, g3, it connects to f5. It has a far more active perspective in the future. Also, when the knight is removed from c3, you have additional ideas to move the c pawn. That
Yeah.
also in the game. So I feel like the route via e2 is more natural than via d1, the one
Yeah.
that you
I
played.
agree.
And this is why I wouldn't play the queen to e2. My preference here is probably h3 to get this bishop g4 idea out of the mix. And one thing that you also want to play is the move that you put in your notes, a4.
Yeah.
This is the other move that makes a lot of sense, making the b5 ideas yeah, possible. You can argue that b5 is not a huge threat at the moment because next development is so far behind. So this move can probably be favorably answered with a4. This is why I probably would go h3. So that I say I still have time for a4. So
Yeah. Okay.
h3,
So if
bishop
so
e7,
if
a4.
a4 and then so if h3 b5 a4 b4 I just go knight e2.
I'm sorry, b5, a4. Yes. So like this is what I would expect to happen.
Okay.
So here you have this route, but you can also, like currently b4 is hanging. And if I'm not sure what black would would do here.
Yeah.
Maybe
Okay.
a5, and here you can play c3 and create quite a substantial pawn tension in a situation where you're like three tempi up on
Wow.
e2.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
So this is, I think, too early. Black should probably
Yeah.
play a more conservative move, bishop e7,
Yeah.
for
Okay.
example, and then a4. Not necessary, maybe, but it's good to have in. And now you have this slow position where you can castle knight e2 to g3. Also an important idea, this knight coming to g3. If black somehow decides to never castle and launch the pawns like h6, g5, then the knight would also be great on g3.
Okay.
Okay, so queen e2 played, bishop e7. Now you play h3, which I like. Knight d7, or now this knight d1. There's an odd move. I was
Yeah.
thinking, okay, really? But I mean, the knight is not well on c3, so it's okay. I think it's not a bad decision. I was just surprised by it. Okay, so castled, castled, h6, knight to e3, rook e8, and knight to f5. This is probably okay, but after bishop f8, here the alarm bells have to start
Yes.
ringing. Yeah, that somehow the queen on e2, I mean, it's not yet a problem, but the queen on e2, that could be tricky.
Yeah.
And so here we went c3, is that right? Yeah, c3. Yeah, this is already running into a technique. So
Yes.
probably you have to take on e5, which is generally not so desirable, of course, but you have the knight on f5 already, which is a pretty nice accomplishment. So that makes it a little bit more bearable to take there. So I would say, let's say DE, DE. Yeah, and now a different move than like c3 doesn't really make any sense
Right.
anymore. We have
Yeah.
to now what to do here. That's an interesting one. I mean, one typical idea would be, sorry, to
Uh huh.
remove the knight, like get this closer to potential attack, or you can try to think about activating the d3 person here. Yeah, that bishop is kind of ugh. c4 would be a good square, so maybe a4 intending bishop c4.
Okay.
I think black is generally okay here. Yeah, it's like you already made this kind of a queen e2 was not so great. Knight d1, d3. It takes a lot of time, so I think it's fair to say black black being okay makes sense in a way, yeah, that they don't have a huge problem here. But the position is okay for you as well. And this is a bit careless, like that now. And now he had this opportunity to take and take on e4.
Yeah.
He didn't. Yeah, he didn't see it probably. Yeah, and now you have to yeah, kind of pull the brakes here in a way and spot that they threaten bishop takes f5 and then e4. I wonder what is the relatively best move? Probably taking on e5.
Yeah. Take on e5. I think. I think.
Yeah, it is a bit of a.
Yeah.
I mean, if you take him, we're just thinking if they take f5. I just wondered about this position. You can definitely capture f5 and then go into this, but e4 is an immediate threat, and your pieces are quite unluckily placed here. So
Yeah.
kind of kind of difficult to. I just wondered what the right way is. Bishop e4 is not a move you would like to play, but
It might be necessary.
it might be, yeah, yeah. I mean, it's not the end of the world. I wouldn't be happy with this situation with white, but you cannot be in terrible shape. Pieces are kind of kind of okay. Yeah, that
Yeah.
definitely should be working. I mean, black can also play this one and renew this idea of taking at e4.
Mm-hmm.
Also, definitely an option, but that is kind of similar to what we have looked
And
at earlier. Just like c3 is probably not too helpful here.
yeah, it's a poor move.
So unsure really what to do.
Well, I know that in. Sorry, this is the actual game, the game move, right? Because here I, I played knight to
You played, yeah,
f
you
to
played,
h4, and I was. I mean, after this, I'm just completely lost. So,
yeah. Did you absolutely not expect g5?
uh, I I miscalculated because I was looking at like a possible. This is not very smart, but I was looking at a possible. I thought like if g5, then I'll just take on h6, but the bishop covers h6, and
Mm,
I just missed that. So it was kind of just it was just a poor move on my part, and I thought I thought that I had dealt with or had a solution to G5, and it just my solution was terrible. So
mm,
yeah, once he played G5, and I realized, oh, I can't do that, and then I fell into the trap that I ended up losing more than I thought I was going to lose. And yeah, at that point, the game was over, and I was just trying to
yeah,
cause complications. So yeah, I just tactical blindness. It was just a poor choice on my part to try that.
yeah. So you spotted g5. It was not that you missed the move altogether.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that you thought you had something that just didn't materialize, right? Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, it could happen. I think also that the move g5, like from a purely strategic point of view, is horrendous.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but why would they want to move the pawn in front of the king and give up f5
Mm-hmm.
and so on? By the way, it just wins. It's a
It totally
problem.
wins. Yeah.
It looks like trash, but it wins. So okay. An interesting thing, however, is once g5 was played, you went back and then you got here. And this is, I mean, objectively speaking, after G5, like everything should lose. But the question is, yeah, the question is, how can you make it as difficult as possible for
Mm-hmm.
your opponent? And I wondered if you had something else here that might be a little bit more challenging from a practical point of view.
Um,
It's something that I wondered because like knight f3 that almost loses without a like it doesn't feel like you even have like swindling chances and
okay.
maybe you can do something. I mean, what I was thinking, maybe try queen f3 here.
Okay.
And again, it's not like you're in great shape, but it's the idea would be if they take on h4, which is maybe not the best move, not quite sure, but let's say they take here. Then you can take h6,
Yes. And
and
f6 is hanging.
yeah. So I mean,
Well, but also, yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah.
I know it's a piece, and probably black should win, but it feels like maybe you can get h4. That would be two pawns, and when the king is a little bit weakish.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like some fighting chances at least. I don't want to oversell this, but
Sure.
it's a bit more than the game, which was basically game over.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. I think that I mentally resigned myself too quickly and played knight f3 because I was like, okay, well, I'm lost, and I'll just try to find something else. But if I mean, from that perspective, knight f3 was a wasted tempo that I could have used to improve a piece, and at least like maybe improved my practical chances.
I mean,
Right?
you will lose material heavy material loss anyway. So
Anyways, yeah, yeah.
so this is maybe a better idea.
Okay,
Of course, black does not have to take, because
sure.
when you have to see that the knight after queen f3 has no
No
square at all
squares.
to go to. So they can definitely try something else. But it's not like they can play any move, as you probably threaten to take on h6 and then
Right.
take f6. So, I mean, it's not so easy, no? And I think at least some chance, you know.
Yes. Yeah.
It tries to highlight the drawbacks of g5, which is weakening the king side forever.
Okay.
And, yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's an important practical virtue to try to. Yeah, a friend of mine always says you just have to throw dirt at the guy, yeah, and it hopes that something sticks in a way.
Yeah, I
And
think that's good advice.
it's probably the way to go here. In the game, there was like, once this was reached, you're even out of any swindling ideas, as it's always like it's a huge tempo, and now it's two pieces, and you're out of any attackers,
Yeah.
and then nothing really happened. I completely understand how this sometimes works. Yeah, you overlook something that you really feel, oh my god, yeah, I'm so should have seen that, and then we sometimes mentally resign. Like, it's very understandable, but it's a huge virtue to still kind of keep trying and solving little problems. That is in particular true if it's somewhat faster time controls, because
Yeah.
like so many things can happen. Yeah, only it was yesterday, right? I watched the I Am Not a GM speeches
Yeah.
final. There's so many topsy-turvy things happening if the clock goes down, and yeah, simply getting to the stage where it gets kind of random, and it's not sometimes not so important to be like material down if you have threats and can simply ask questions that they might not answer correctly. So
Yeah.
it's, I don't want to yeah, paint this in a too rosy way, but yeah, at least the
No,
game
I
do it.
gotcha. I think I get what you're saying. Yeah, I think that that's a weakness in my game. So I have a buddy um, who who I've played against a couple times. First time I beat him, and it was a pretty big upset. And then the next two times he beat me, and he told me that his coach, when going over my game, says this is the same guy and he does the same thing every time. So it's like as soon as I get into I make an error and get into a worse position, I suddenly make I like start sacrificing pieces and like not in a particularly good manner because I'm lost anyway. And I'm thinking, well, I just want to like find some chances. But I think my mistake is that I'm sacrificing my potential attackers that could counterattack instead. So yeah, it's definitely a weakness of mine that often I can immediately collapse if things do not go my way, which I think we also saw in our previous lessons as well. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, it's important to keep on fighting. In a way, it's kind of funny sometimes because some players who have let's say not so great opening knowledge or have some problems, they often get into trouble, getting into bad positions, but they're so used to that that they excel in creating practical problems.
Yeah.
And this is a skill also. It's very important. Something that if you play a brand of chess that is like more correct, let's say, where
Uh
you
huh.
think about everything very meticulously, and I don't want to weaken and so on. And it's sometimes alien to in this kind of street fighting way, but it's a very important skill. You can get very far just by like keep on fighting, finding resources, finding tricks, and yeah, many tricks in one game. An opponent might overlook one of them, or
Yeah.
yeah, some little things. Sometimes they pile up. Okay, one takeaway is maybe you never face this opening again. It's possible, but looking at f4 a little bit makes some sense.
Yeah.
It just makes the task easier, just because your plans are a little bit more obvious. It's not this kind of slowish maneuvering where you have to very meticulously improved pieces, you just say, okay, I'm going to take a big center and I'll crush you, or you, yeah, do something about it, or I crush you in a way.
Okay.
So I think that makes a lot of sense. When I created this course last year, I was basically making it very consistent. Once this position was on the board, I was just giving out the recommendation, whatever they play, not e5. Against that, we
Mm-hmm.
shouldn't go f4 because they can take here. But against everything else, like g6, go f4, against knight e7, go f4, against all those things, or let's say this one, go f4. So completely consistent.
Mm-hmm.
This makes a lot of sense so that you get like similar positions.
Yeah.
And when you create your opening repertoire, it makes sense to be consistent in this way because then you have shared themes and ideas. Um, so it's much easier from a strategic point of view to play f4 here if you also do it in the other cases, for example. Okay, so don't want to look at the opening of here for too long, but I think it's a good one maybe to check for a future game,
Okay.
even though you might never get it. I mean, yeah, it's very rare. It's
Yeah.
very rare. I had it on in one game in tournament chess and classical time control chess. It was one game out of a lot. So
Yeah.
very rare. Okay, so I suggest to look at the exercises now. There are a combination of there's calculation involved, but also thinking about, yeah, dynamic possibilities. And I have two, and we probably two examples, two games or fragments of games, and we probably won't manage to look at them both in absolutely deepest detail. But
Sure.
there are plenty of good moments to analyze. So I want to start with a game played by Tal against a player I didn't know. Sherepkov is the name. That's one of those games from Russian championships, Alma Ata 1968. So, yeah, one of those counter Soviet guys, pretty strong.
Mm-hmm.
Probably never were allowed to leave the country, but pretty strong player.
Yeah.
So we jump in at move 19. So it's position out of the Rue Lopez.
Mm-hmm.
And could also be like a Sicilian, but it was a Rue Lopez. Pretty clear from the piece configuration and the
Yeah.
structure. It is white to move, tile to move. And I would like you to take a look at the position and think about possible options here for white and what options you would probably look at with priority. That's
Mm.
what's important here, I think.
So the first move that comes to my mind is knight d5.
Mhm.
That just seems like a obvious, like it's forcing, so it just sticks out. Um,
Any other
yeah, I'm
move of a
thinking.
forcing nature? Sorry. Mhm.
I was also just now looking at bishop to b3, but I feel like after c4, the bishop just has to move back, and I'm not sure that the weakened diagonal is actually that bad. I feel like now black could play bishop c5 after the
Mhm.
bishop moves back. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure I want to give that because the dark square bishop looks pretty bad. But that doesn't mean that it's absolutely the rule. There's also possibly b4 with the idea of c captures b4, c captures b4, knight captures b4, and then bishop a3. Just kind of pinning that knight or putting some pressure on that knight, and maybe I can increase the pressure with another move, but that's not like set in stone. It's just an idea. I'm just telling you what sticks out to me. Ideas.
Yeah. In that line, however, after the knight takes on b4, bishop a3, it's not a real pin. No? Black could take on c2. Not sure that's the best move, but they
Yeah.
could do it.
Okay, that's a good point. Yeah, and then the bishop is just hanging. Well, knight takes on c2 and then trades, but then I'm just down a pawn. Okay, so what
But
about?
by the way, the move that is most interesting, you mentioned straight away, of course, it's 95. Yeah,
Yes, yeah.
I just want to think about like a more complete picture if there is anything else. The move 95 is the one we should look at with most urgency. Like for a complete picture, um, I would also maybe briefly think about knight to f5. It's also
Yeah, that was the other one I was looking at.
not the worst kind of idea, but it has, of course, a drawback. It's
Yep.
far less forcing. Yeah, we are not threatening anything with the move. Well, with 95, obviously we attack the queen, and it's much more forcing.
Yes.
Um, Something else that can be considered, like from a strategic point of view, is maybe an idea to move the f3 knight and clear the way for the queen. Sometimes in those types of situations when you have this pawn formation, you see ideas like that where the knight comes here, the queen comes here. So white tries to shift pieces to the king's side. That is not an uncommon idea, but in the current position, the move knight d5 is the most forcing and it's just stronger by concrete means. Let's, however, try to figure out after 95 how this continues because it's something that we can or should calculate quite a bit. So, what is probably Black's response to 95? That's something we want to calculate as precisely as possible.
So I was looking at knight d5, and then knight captures d5, and then e captures d5, and then rook d8.
Mhm.
So pinning that pawn. From there, bishop e4 looks bishop e4 then f5. Is there a better way to
Mhm.
support it?
That's
Oh,
already a
wait,
real.
wait, wait.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
after rook d8, yeah, I'm like even like considering like well, I was looking at like bishop g5 really quick, but then just like I think f6 to, and the idea behind bishop g5 is if the bishop takes bishop f bishop h7, then knight g5, just like a typical Greek gift. But I don't think that works because I think black can just take the pawn on d5.
They can after bishop g5, they can just take d5, yeah, like
Yeah,
rook takes
yeah,
d5.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, what I see, like, I think I would like to support the pawn. I would like to play bishop to e4, but black has f5, um, which just forces the bishop away from the defense of the pawn. If c4 instead, just pawn takes, doesn't seem that good. Yeah, I'm not sure how to respond to rook d8 and keep the pawn.
yeah, that clearly has to be the critical continuation. Yeah, let's try to figure this out. We are we have created this fork on the knight and the bishop, which
Mm-hmm.
looks cool. Only with this rook d8 move, they can hang on. Yeah, otherwise black would just lose a piece.
Yes.
So after rook d8, it's important to not stop and just give up. We
Right.
have to think about other, or we have to think about possible responses that would keep the game going, and it cannot be pretty clearly, it cannot be something extremely slow. We have to be kind of very forcing,
Continuing to threaten.
very concrete, right?
Yeah.
So if we look at candidate moves, we want to look at the moves that are the most forcing.
Yeah, I was just looking at D captures E6, Rook captures D1, and then uh, E captures F7 check. Just because
Yeah.
it's forcing. I don't know if it's good, but it's forcing.
Um, if you do this in the final position, we would reach a position where we have given up the queen for a bishop and a rook, right?
Yes.
That's not the best continuation for white, but
Mm-hmm.
it's interesting just from a purely evaluation point of view. What do you think this position could be evaluated
After Rook capture or after E captures
after?
F7 check.
Yeah, after we give the queen. I can put this on the board to make it a little bit more,
Accessible to the viewers. Yeah.
like this. What do you think?
Um,
Is it's a queen for a bishop and a rook.
oh.
Not the main point of this exercise. It's just an
Yeah.
interesting little detour.
I mean, this. I think I would still prefer black, but I feel like white has some chances to cause some trouble because of the bishop pair and the rook is actively placed, whereas like right now the queen kind of has to be remaneuvered somewhere else. And I mean, I think like the advantage is still blacks, but this I think this might be difficult to for black to if white is accurate, it might be difficult for black to have an easy game.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. I think this is we're doing good here because I mean, objectively, white is completely fine. White is not even worse because the pieces are so well placed. The bishop will come to e4, so it's important if you think about this from black's perspective that you wouldn't simply think, "Oh, I'm a queen up, I'm winning easily."
Right.
That's definitely not the case. And from white's perspective, this is the kind of position that if you don't have anything great and or somehow you stumble into that, it's not something where you would be. I wouldn't be afraid to be worse here because the pieces are so good. The black king is kind of shaky. It's not a bad position for white. I think the computer. I haven't looked at this with the computer for a long time, but back some years ago, it was already saying a zero, and
Yeah.
so this is not so bad, but it's not the best continuation.
Okay.
And we have to really think like here after knight d5, knight takes, e takes, rook takes to check further moves that are the most forcing. I would really like you to find the two most forcing moves. D takes d6 is forcing, but there are two other moves that are more forcing even.
Well, bishop captures h7 is forcing.
Yeah.
Now that is one I was looking at. These okay, so I'm looking deeper. So after bishop h7, king h7, knight g5, bishop g5, queen h5 check, bishop h6, bishop captures h6. It's a
The
little
problem
difficult, but I think like
is
black has to like do like a rook lift or something. Like or sorry, white has to do a rook lift like rook e3.
in
So
this line, the problem is you don't have a single piece left, I think.
right, yeah, you're giving away too
Kind
much.
of Pyromaniac chess. You have
Yeah.
no, you have
Oh, you
nothing
said
left.
forcing.
Yeah, it's true. It's forcing. But but now we are getting very close to the essence here. So you thought bishop h7, okay, king takes, and then knight g5. Okay, in this position, do we have other forcing moves?
um, well, we still have bishop captures. Sorry, we still have pawn captures e6, but that's not as forcing. I'm trying to.
Yeah, the queen is still on d1 in that pin.
Yes. I mean, we have d6 threatening the queen. I mean, bishop takes, but and I'm not sure that d6 actually like d6 improves anything because of the bishop. Or well, I think the rook takes, and there's still no knight g5 because the bishop just covers, and the
With
queen is under threat.
with a king on h7, you have to of course consider all the checks. Knight g5 doesn't do much, but we have other checks that are very relevant.
With the king on h7.
Yeah,
Oh, queen d3,
yep. Queen d3 check, and
queen c2 check.
yeah. And now, the which one is more interesting?
I think queen c2 check because it gets the queen out of the pin, so you can just pick up one of the pieces.
Yes, and this is exactly what you have to see when you play 95. It's an interesting position and an interesting situation because it doesn't look at all tactical, this position, but you actually have to do quite a bit of calculation to make the move work that you would like to play. So this is an interesting case where, like, you immediately saw a 95 as an active way to play, but it's very much possible that in a game you end up not playing it because you cannot quite figure out if this variation with knight takes, e takes, rook d8, if this works. Because if you don't have a tactic, you just blunder d5 away, right? The
Yes.
pawn
Yeah.
would be lost. And this is a very, very nice yeah, exercise that shows that sometimes to play the strategically desirable moves, we have to make deeper calculation. In fact, this is even more complicated once we get a little bit further. 95 was played in the game. Black took it. By the way, the best move, like by
Bishop
computer
takes.
standards, no, is moving the queen away.
Oh, okay.
Now you can go to b7 and ignore the knight. And this would be the objectively best continuation. But it's not so easy to do that because you feel annoyed by the knight on d5. And okay, white is still maybe a bit better, but uh, it's better than the game, which amounts to a huge problem.
Yeah.
So knight takes, pawn takes, rook d8. And now, I mean, it's Karl playing white. Of course, he spotted bishop h7 easily and played it. And now we come to the real or the big points that's still to come. Black, the critical move is not the capture
It's to move the
because
king.
moving the king, yeah.
Yeah.
So the capture, once you spot queen c2, you can basically stop your calculation because the king has to move, or maybe g6 doesn't really matter. And then this is just fantastic for white. Nothing much to say. Black's position will be extremely weak. Yeah, queen to g6 and so on.
Yep.
So ideally, spotted that, and you're an extremely skilled calculator. You could, when playing 95, anticipate what happens after king f8 because that would be the critical move. and played in the game. Why is this not a critical move? Maybe we can figure this out.
Um, well, I think that if the queen ever gets to h5, then
Yeah.
it's game. I think it's game over. So the question is, does white have excuse me, enough like tempi to gain in order to do that? And I think white can play knight captures e5 and just follow up. And I think if the knight retakes, then just queen h5. But now I'm thinking g5, or sorry,
Interesting.
g6 rather. Bishop takes with check, king g8, queen h7 check, king f.
Knight
Maybe
takes
that's
e5.
okay.
Yeah. Knight takes e5 is also interesting.
So
Yeah, I
I wasn't thinking of like knight g5 because after queen h5, so after bishop takes the knight, queen h5, and
yes,
then bishop
but
h6.
sorry, you can just do this, right?
Yeah, I was also looking at that.
Mhm. And the issue here is
If they play
one
g6, yeah. Oh, and yeah,
everything is
everything's
hanging.
under attack. No, you're right. Yeah, I
Yeah.
didn't. I missed that the knight was hanging or the rook was hanging. So yeah. Okay.
So
All right.
you mentioned the real issue absolutely that this queen h5 is absolutely disastrous if the king is on h8. Yeah. So this is why king f8 has to be played. And like ideally, even here, this is something that white should see when they play knight d5. Maybe Tal did. From more like human perspective, Tal was a super gifted tactician. I think I would be fine if I spot this king takes queen c2 because I know I'm fine there.
Yeah.
Like if I see that okay, they can move the king, I would still think okay, if the absolute worst thing that can happen, I could still like move the queen and then it's equal material, and black's king is still kind of oddly placed here. I mean, we have a much better thing, but just like even playing a normal move wouldn't be so bad. It's enough
Yeah.
to make the whole thing playable. So we should check, however, what a better solution is after King F8, or what the best solution is. What do you think? Do you have an idea what we could play?
Um,
Just look at some candidates and try
yeah.
to make them
So
work. Yeah.
moves I'm looking at. So knight g5. Um, Now with the idea of bishop, if the bishop takes, then bishop captures on g5. And if not, just excuse me, queen. So if like white takes the pawn on d5, then queen h5. Any other
One
candidates?
one difference after knight g5 compared to the king being on h8 is that knight g5 they could take it, bishop takes, and f6.
Yeah.
When queen h5 doesn't threaten anything, which is a big
Okay.
difference to the king being on h8.
Excuse me. There's also
Last year you used this for your Halloween bucket. You want to get a different bucket this year? Same. You like this one still?
Just we just make a
yeah.
list of candidate moves. So definitely knight g5 clearly is a candidate move. Yeah, it's aggressive,
Yeah.
forcing, absolutely true. What other moves would come into consideration?
Bishop g5. I mean, it also runs into f6, but bishop g5 seems like something to consider.
forcing though, right? They could just take d5.
Yep. Not forcing.
What else is there? They want to take d5. Yeah, we have a move to
Yeah.
stop it in its
Yeah.
tracks.
Bishop e4.
Yeah, it's kind of the most. It's the simplest move, right? We just
Yes.
say, okay,
Oh yeah, bishop. Sorry. Go ahead.
so bishop e4, and once we are at bishop e4, there are not that many things that black could try because what are they going to do? Yeah, they kind of stuck in that fork. What do we have to calculate?
F4 or sorry F5.
Yes, sorry, I have to.
Bless you.
Thankfully, I can mute that microphone.
Uh-huh.
Sorry. So bishop e4 f5, exactly. But how do we punish that? That is just not working at all. If we see the right continuation. All the forward moves. You have to check them.
Yeah.
It's a bit
No,
it's nothing for lazy persons here. You have to
yeah, no,
look
that's
at
fine. That's fine. I
all
was
that
looking at knight g5 again.
Yeah, yeah. This is a much stronger
Because there's no
threat.
f6.
Yeah, that's no f6. The knight g5, right? Not bishop g5. Yeah? Knight g5. That threatens knight takes e6, winning everything.
Yes.
And black doesn't have that many possible replies. They can take the knight, and
But
we
then the
simply take
rook
on
is under
g5,
threat.
and their rook is under threat. And which is important, like the rook is under threat, it cannot move to that many squares because they have to keep that pin alive on the d5 pawn. So if you can visualize that, it's not so easy. Rook to d7, and now it's our move. If we just need one more move, then the whole thing is done. It's tough, but you get it. So yeah,
So the moves that I'm looking at, I'm just considering. I was queen to f3.
yes, very good. That's an immediate winner.
Yeah.
It takes it's not an easy thing to visualize. Yeah, okay, so bishop e4. Yep, knight g5. They have to take. And now the great thing is with this knight g5 thing, now the queen can move. And after rook here, we can go here. And this is probably the moment where black resigns. They lose everything. This is hanging, 5 is hanging, and we are pawn up, which is nice to have, but everything hanging is more of a problem.
Yes.
That's winning immediately. That's a very nice variation. So bishop e4, that's a very tough move to meet. Now, it would be really good if you could find the best defense against bishop e4.
Yeah.
So easy. Black has a move to stay in the game. f5 loses immediately, but black has a move to stay in the game after bishop e4. They're worse, but not immediately like drastically lost. So what could be the move that black can still play after bishop e4?
So I'm just thinking about f5 and why f5 is bad. So, is there a way to even prepare f5 like
that
g6,
gives you energy to make
but then bishop h6,
so if you put that part, make sure
check,
it's in the sunshine.
and I'm not sure. Maybe the king just goes to e8 and continues to hang on to its existence. Let's see what else. Not f5. Bishop
Black
to
wants
bishop to
sorry.
f6, maybe.
That doesn't threaten anything, I think. It doesn't
Okay.
really strengthen black's point.
Yeah, I was thinking bishop f6, preparing knight to e7 to attack the pawn one more time.
Mm. Probably runs into knight g5 again, yeah?
Yeah.
Bishop.
Mm-hmm.
What black's critical move is to try to increase the immediate pressure on d5 so that black threatens to take it.
It's like
This
queen
is the move.
d7. No,
Yeah,
that
that's a
queen
critical move.
d7.
Yeah,
What?
queen d7
Oh,
just
because
try.
the bishop is taking first. Okay, yeah, no, that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah, um, it's not saving black, yeah, but it's a move, it's a critical move. Like if
Yeah.
they can take d5 and equalize on material, then it's okay.
Okay.
Okay, so queen d7 that was played in the game. Sorry, bishop e4, queen d6. It's the same idea. Sorry,
Yeah.
yeah, but it's the same point. And
It's
now,
probably slightly better because the queen doesn't come over to tempo if the pawn captures. But yeah.
yeah, probably yes. So here now again we switch sides. White's point of view. Let's find at least two good moves. There are at least two. The one that Tal played is pretty strong, but there's an alternative. I think we should definitely find one of them. I think the one that he played is actually relatively difficult to find. Makes a ton of sense once you see it, but there's a simpler alternative that I think should be spotted in any case. It's something that everybody should see. Not just Tal, yeah? So an
Well,
interesting,
oh,
please.
I feel like knight g5 is always a threat to consider. I was also looking at. I think it's a little too fantastic. So not realistic, but like possibly like capturing on c6 with the pawn to push to c7 or 4, like threaten a promotion. But I think that both of those squares are covered, so it's a maybe too much to ask for. But it's just an idea. What else? What else? Not sure. Thinking.
I just wanted to mention one way to approach a position like this. And like this is always kind of a weird thing to say, yeah, because when exactly do we have exactly this position?
Sure.
But what I'm getting at is you pretty much know what the next black move is. Yeah, it's going to be bishop takes d5.
Yes.
Unless we do something really weird or something, they would take on d5. So let's say we would play a nothing move, king to h1. I know it's silly, just for the argument's sake, they will take d5, white will take d5, probably queen d5. This is a position that we will get. So this sequence will be what black is playing. So we basically now have a free roll. We can play whatever, and they will take d5. So we can think about this, play one move, and do something that makes sense. They will pick up the pawn, but remember, we are pawn up. If they get d5, it's just equal material, right?
Hmm.
We have snatched a7 on the way. So
Oh,
let's let's play a good move that makes sense, and then okay, they take d5, but we
queen
get
b
some
queen b3 seems like a move.
queen to b3. Sorry, I didn't
Yeah,
quite.
yeah, queen to b3.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good move. We get out of the d file, so we really force them to take on d5,
Uh-huh.
and you wanted to attack b5, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
So what this does, it just wins a pawn for pretty much nothing. So this is an absolutely reasonable continuation.
Hmm.
Black can play e4 here to gain a bit of activity, but it's not going to be enough. Yeah, you
Right.
can play the knight to d2. Our pieces are a bit awkward. That really is the case. It's not ideal,
Hmm.
but we are aiming for the great square c4 for the knight, and that's going to, yeah, reestablish harmony in the position.
Hmm.
So this way, queen to b3, or alternatively queen to e2. It's the same thing. We just have two ways to look at the b pawn. This would win a pawn.
Yeah.
And it's good. There's nothing bad about this. It wins a pawn. And this is like the more maybe yeah, human way to play, or whatever, simpler way to play.
Hmm.
Snatch a pawn, be happy about it. Tal played a different move. What he did is, I think, I can only speculate, maybe he made a similar, or he thought about this in a way, as I mentioned, like anticipating that black would take twice on d5 next, and he just checked what other moves can I maybe play that make any sense and that have any benefit in this situation after they've taken twice on d5. One way to find this maybe is to make a little bit of a harmony check in black's position. What is kind of not right in black's position, or what is kind of the problem? And one thing that I feel sticks out is black doesn't have an H pawn anymore. That
Hmm.
weakens the whole king situation. And the king is on f8, which is a kind of odd thing. If you imagine, if our queen would hit h8, it's mate.
Hmm.
It's checkmate.
Right.
So, um, one way, sorry, I was just like misclicking here. One way to see it is like if we can get our queen close to black's king, that can turn out to be really dangerous.
Hmm.
And maybe you have an idea now. How can we possibly get to like h8 around this area of the board?
Well, as usual, there I'm looking at knight g5
Mhm.
to clear the diagonal. Knight captures e5 would be interesting, but the queen can take. I mean, it's extreme, but there's also like knight to d4, allowing queen h5. But I think the king can just run at that point.
The solution, by the way, is not a really violent one. It's just
Uh huh.
it's the same thought process as before. Like black will take on d5, white will take on d5, queen takes, and white just needs to play a move to get the queen close to the king. We know that they will take d5 next. There's not much of a choice.
Okay. Oh, queen c2.
Yep, this is one of those moves. It's amazingly simple, but it's extremely effective.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just go here, and black has to take now. But we are now we have unpinned, so they absolutely have to take. And this is very dangerous for black. Queen h8 checkmate,
Uh huh.
and oh, yeah, very very tricky. It is interesting, by the way, that the move queen c2, while being strong and played by Tal, is not the absolute best move in the position. But the best move is very difficult to see, and I didn't expect you to find it, or it is very difficult to see. It's something that is a bit shocking, and also it wasn't seen by Tal, which is kind of funny. Um, there's this move. I know it looks very strange, but this is one of those tactical moves that, yeah, you just don't find because they are so hidden. The
Well,
idea is
I
if the
was
bishop,
look I was looking at this. I just a move to move the to it's just a clearance, right? So
yeah, yeah,
I was looking at this, but um I was thinking that there was probably something that was more practical. Yeah. So yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Right
The
there.
weird thing about this is like in this line, now we are moving the queen. So
Uh-huh.
this means we are now threatening to take a piece here for real.
Yeah.
And
Everything's
white
hanging
threatening check and then take the bishop with a
with check.
check. It's so weird. It's such a weird resource. If Tal didn't spot that, I mean, which is kind of shows you that it's not exactly simple.
Yeah.
But I
That's not
think
what I saw either. I was just thinking moving the knight out of the way
Mhm.
for clearance, not to pick up the piece in the
Yeah,
line with a bunch of tempos. But yeah,
what he
yeah,
played is a strong, yeah, Queen
uh
C2
huh,
is a strong move, and I think also instructive in a way because it shows this kind of calculation technique where you know, okay, the next move, they don't have much choice because they're in that fork, and this makes it relatively easy now to calculate. They have to take, and then the queen shows up near the black king, and it's already very tricky for black to play this position. Played bishop to f6, and now I think the next move is still good to find. Let's find a good attacking move here in this position.
Maybe.
um, I'm looking at bishop g5. If bishop takes, then knight g5. And if not, you just take on f6. But um,
Yeah,
it's interesting. I don't know if it's right. So, but it's just I'm just looking at the move.
the
h4.
thing is, I know that it is not right, but I just try to figure out why. E4, yeah, could be a problem.
Mm-hmm.
But then bishop takes f6 should be good, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's not the problem. So what is black going to play after bishop g5? Interesting. Not sure if there's a
Oh,
refutation.
sorry. Sorry, what were you gonna say?
I'm not sure that there's a refutation of bishop g5.
Uh huh.
I currently don't see one. Even
What about? Mm, I don't know. This still might also be too extravagant. Bishop f4.
Mhm. Yeah, okay. If they take it, that's nice. Yeah, but
Yeah, but if they don't,
it's not threatening much. Yeah,
right?
you're not
Yeah.
even attacking e5 there.
Okay.
But I just wondered, is bishop g5 a bad move? It wasn't played, right? But I wonder if it is really bad.
I I don't know. So I mean if I force the bishop off, then the position for the black king is weakened. But I also feel like the checks just chase the king away. So so I'm not sure that it's worth
One
the
move that
trouble.
I think could be a thing is this one, maybe.
Hmm.
Uh, because we definitely with white we definitely don't want to trade. And
And so queen h8 forces king e7, bishop captures f6. I guess king captures f6.
mm,
Okay.
that's safe, yeah? That's a safe move. I mean,
Yeah.
G takes, right?
Yeah. G. Or I was thinking if yeah, if g takes, then you just retreat.
G takes looks daring,
Yeah.
but we can take with the pawn. That's safe.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
that's safe. My issue would be probably white will move the queen somewhere to h4, let's say, and then black could use the queen here for defense.
Yeah.
It's not so bad for black probably. Yeah, the best move is a bit different. It's in a way to improve the white pieces. The bishop and the knight are not that actively involved, yeah, in the attack, and white can improve that quite a bit with the right maneuver. It's a move that we had to basically check every single time in the yeah in the last couple of moves. It's knight g5.
Hmm.
Simple but strong. The idea is that the capture now is a real problem for
Yeah.
queen h8, and the idea is to get the knight to e4, where it is
Ah.
really
Hmm.
like
Yeah.
possibly intending to take sometimes, but also looking at c5. That's a strong move.
Yeah. Wonderful square.
Knight e7 and now knight e4.
You don't need to take
Yeah,
the toys out.
I
I'm
think
washing
here
them.
black is kind of without any defense. Bishop e3, bishop e7. Yeah, and here maybe we can try to find another good attacking move, which is still important. I mean, it's very nice for white, but we have to find something we are forcing, let's say more or less forcing. Can we continue our
You're not ready
attack?
to come out. You need to go to the bathroom first.
Okay.
Some water. I know how to hold my pee if I have to go. You don't seem to know how to do that lately.
Hmm.
Well, not nothing fancy really. It's
Mm-hmm. I was looking at a queen, just even like queen h8, but I don't know if that does anything. And just
we have to watch our knight here.
oh yeah, no, you're right.
It's not super intuitive maybe because we think like almost automatically the knight is great on e4,
Mm-hmm.
but thing is going here is even better
Yeah.
because we focus our attack on the g7 pawn.
Mm-hmm.
That's really difficult for black to defend. Just want to quickly end this here. Rook d6, knight f5, rook g6, and yeah, now we can make it a
Oh, this
final.
is great. Yeah, just queen g8.
Yeah,
That's
that's
wonderful.
a really nice one, yeah, at the
Yeah.
end. And I think that was also the final move. Yeah, queen takes g8, the final move. So it's an interesting one. It's not a well-known game by Tal, but it has some interesting technical points.
Mm-hmm.
And like what I feel is an important point is the one right here at the very beginning, because you immediately spotted that 95 looks, it feels right, feels
Mm-hmm.
like the move that you want to play. But it's very easy to yeah persuade yourself that it doesn't work. It's very easy. Like here, you'd spot rook d8 maybe and think, oh shoot, I'm going to lose d5. This
Mm-hmm.
is bad. And the main thing is to just calculate one more move and see bishop takes h7.
Yeah.
Once you spot this possibility, you see that yeah, the tactical trick is the key resort that makes 95 possible in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
In this position, by the way, the move queen d3, we never talked about that.
Uh-huh.
That is also a move that would come into consideration.
Mm-hmm.
Bishop h7 is stronger, but from a like what is the process, what's the procedure, you should see the move as the threat is made.
Yes.
And black is kind of limited to g6 probably, and then you could take on b5. This is not really brilliant. Like here, black is probably quite happy,
Mm-hmm.
but it's part of the job, yeah, that
Yeah.
we would like to
Something
look
you
at
got to
this.
do.
Bishop takes h7, however, once you spot that and see, okay, if they take, must be critical, queen c2, and we take here,
Mm-hmm.
we basically know that we can play the move 95.
Yeah.
It is, however, not so simple. I think this whole thing, spotting that is something in a tournament game, longer time control, should find that, but it's not so easy if you have a very little time on the clock.
Right.
You know?
Okay.
Okay, that was a nice calculation exercise, and it's an important thing to look for the most active moves and really actively try to make them work.
Yeah.
We sometimes are not. This is a typical thing. It's not something that is limited, like, even to amateur players. It happens to everybody. I had plenty of games where I myself had chances, active chances, but I didn't spot a key idea or key resource that made the move work that I wanted to play.
Mm-hmm.
We often spot the right idea, but kind of don't see why exactly it would work. And this is sometimes also a psychological thing where we don't quite trust maybe our intuition or our ability, and we give up too easily. And this is something where we really should try as much as we can to make the active moves work that we spot. And this is a good example of that. Okay, I have a second one, which is actually now, I didn't quite know how long we would take to look at your game and the first example.
Mm-hmm.
This is actually the more complex one. So
Okay.
we won't do every single detail, but some key moments, right, that I feel are the most important. This is a game from the 1970s, played between two grandmasters, Razuvayev and Farago. Two interesting players. I think Ivan Farago only recently passed away, if I'm not mistaken. He was one of the most recently means like the last year, sometime.
Mm-hmm.
He was one of the most active chess players ever. He has like 5,000 games in the chess base, mega base or something. It's crazy. He's
Yeah.
played unbelievable amount of games. And Razuviev was for a very long time in the 1980s and 90s. He died roughly 10 years ago, I think. He was one of the main coaches of the Soviet Union and later Russia.
Mm.
He was the head coach for, I think, the Olympiad team in the 1990s, something like that. So very prominent Russian coach.
Okay.
And this is a game from the 1970s when there were like active players. Okay, it was a Queen's Gambit, the so-called semi-Tarrasch.
Mm-hmm.
And we go ahead a little bit and get to a position with an isolated queen pawn.
Yep.
Something that can happen out of many openings, from d4 to a Sicilian with 2c3 to Karo-Kan Panov. It's just like one of those pawn structures that every chess player should know in a way.
Yes.
And we see some typical ideas in the isolated queen pawn here in the game too. Bishop e7, both sides castled. And now here white has a good choice between reasonable moves, rook e1, for example. The move Razuvayev played is not the most obvious, but also a good one, played bishop to d3. Looks a bit strange to voluntarily retreat, but the diagonal b1 to h7 is often a key attacking diagonal for white, wants to maybe build up an attack against h7.
Sure.
Here, again, black has some choices between reasonable continuations. Farago took on c3. This is maybe not the best way to play,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not objectively terrible. What he was thinking is that the pawns that now arise, this pawn structure, could also be attacked in the long run. That is true because if you look at the c3 pawn, it still looks kind of weakish, this pawn. It's currently undefended. And if you think about, we played b6 now, we can put that on the board. If you think about like a knight coming to a5, maybe a bishop coming to d5, rook c8, you can imagine like get something going on the queen side.
Mm-hmm.
The problem with this plan is it's a bit slow. And this is one of those cases where playing energetically is extremely important. If white now, and this is the same thing in an isolated queen pawn position, if white plays some slower stuff, black will maybe manage their idea and get some play against the c pawn. So we want to play as aggressively as possible. The absolute best move, um, or let me insert two moves, rook e1, bishop b7. I think rook e1 looks very logical, as does bishop b7. If we look at this here, the absolute best move is the move that Razuvayev played. And in fact, the connecting idea now bears his name. So it's kind of funny. So he's responsible for the attacking idea that now happens, and he's the namesake for this idea. You might not find this one, but maybe you have some other interesting attacking ideas. We just want to look at some possible ways to drum up an attack. Do you have ideas?
Yeah, so this looks like a typical like Greek gift. The problem is that the bishop on e7 is covering g5. One idea that I'm sure doesn't make quite the amount of sense that it should, is just to play h4 to cover or control g5. But after like bishop h4, knight h4, queen h4, there's no sacrifice on h7, so you're just down a pawn. But like that still is, it's interesting. Queen
If you,
c2 hits h7.
Nick, just a second.
Sure.
So h4, you said the bishop could take the pawn, right?
Yes.
So bishop takes h4, knight takes h4, queen takes h4. If you look at this position, we've given
rook e4.
yes,
Okay.
that's an interesting move, absolutely. And there's a similar idea that is even more powerful. It's very similar. I'm almost telling you the move now. I think of it. If I say it's very similar, it's kind of okay. So you see, rook e4 is not bad, by the way.
Yeah.
It's just not a bad move, but the
Queen. I'm not sure actually. I'm trying to think. I mean, there's g3, but I mean, just like instinctually, that doesn't feel right because of the diagonal. I mean, there is like bishop e4 contesting the diagonal, but that seems like too passive.
we want to get pieces into the attack.
Right.
And rook e4 is absolutely not bad at all, right? But the idea would be to use the rook, maybe we gain a tempo on the queen.
Rook e3.
Yeah, rook
To go to
e3.
h3.
Yeah, this is even better. And I said initially that you might not find the best continuation, but you just did. Yeah, this is the best move and played in the game. And nowadays, this whole attacking idea is called the Razuvayev idea or something.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a very interesting pawn sacrifice, and black probably shouldn't take it.
Right.
It's something that, like, I think the computer says it's kind of okay for black, but it's difficult to play.
Yeah.
Maybe, like a modern player maybe would take it if they are absolutely convinced that it works out move by move. Like they are sometimes really that very concrete. They say, okay, I'm not getting checkmated, show me. And it's still from a practical point of view very difficult position to play. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm an old school guy and I would never take the pawn. On the other hand, I would also hate to be in this position because knight g5 and so on,
Right.
kind of dangerous. So this is a very strong move and played in the game. The more yeah, there's a simpler, more conventional ways to drum up attack here would be to play bishop c2 for queen
Mm-hmm.
e3,
Yep.
setting up the battery and trying to, with the mate threat, provoke a weakness. It's not bad at all. Another idea that's also worth noting is rook b1 with this idea.
Mm-hmm.
These kind of ideas can be easily overlooked, but it's good to just see that there's this dynamic possibility.
Yeah.
The rook on a1 is not participating in the attack, which is not true about all the other pieces.
Right.
They're all kind of helping. They can join quickly. Rook e4, by the way, is not a terrible move either. So sometimes thinking about which pieces are not involved yet could lead up to an idea like this.
Mm.
However, the best move is the one that was played h4. Now, Farago played knight a5, and that's a risky move. I mean, he pursues the general strategic idea to open up the c file, create some play,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe ideally use the c4 square, but it's also moving away a piece from the king side where clearly the action is happening.
Right.
Um, Knight g5, not a surprise. And that is the big idea of h4, that the knight comes quickly to g5,
Mm-hmm.
and now we have the opportunity to get the queen into the attack to h5 or to g4, which is a more aggressive way to play than the the battery idea, like bishop c2, queen
Right.
d3. It's even more, yeah, it's more powerful. Now, very interesting moment. h7 is, of course, attacked, so black's choices are limited. An interesting moment is if black takes on g5, because um, it's not such an easy decision now. Would you rather take with the bishop or with the pawn? Do you have an immediate preference?
I'd rather take with the pawn.
Yeah, to open up the h file.
Yeah, to open up the H file, and if uh, if G6 comes with 2 points of contact, so it's a bit more like forcing. Like I feel like
Mhm.
black is forced to like move a pawn, whereas if I take with the bishop and then I push H5 and H6, black could conceivably play G6 and maybe cover the dark squares with his queen. So
Mhm.
I feel more inclined to take with the pawn.
Yeah. Interesting. What we I think should do is, first of all, this one. You said it's more forcing, which I would not agree with
Okay.
because like, where's the threat now? I don't see an immediate threat for white. Yeah, I mean we
Mm-hmm.
definitely have ideas, but it's not like we attack a piece or something like that.
Okay.
On the other hand, opening up the H file is of course a huge thing. If we manage to get the queen here and something like that, that's the end of the game.
Yes.
Rook to h3 and we're crashing through. So in a way, with h takes g5, we like make sure if we are crashing through, it's game over.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but there is a drawback of the move, and that's something we really should not forget about. We are making our own bishop look quite stupid.
Mm-hmm.
It looks at its own pawn, and it's not participating anymore in a way. We are
Mm.
kind of saying, okay, we might break through, but our pieces that take part in the attack are actually not all playing. It's not. It's kind of it's a bit of an all-in move in a way. Yeah, we
Mm.
might push through, but we are risking something strategically because the bishop is not playing. Um, my initial reaction when I saw this game for the very first time was also to take with the pawn. And objectively, if you look at this with the computer, it says both moves are equally good.
Okay.
But it's interesting to appreciate just that this is not bad at all. We
Mm-hmm.
gain tempo. This is, in fact, forcing because the queen is hanging.
Right.
And black will probably go to d5
Mm-hmm.
so that they don't play something passive. And here,
Bishop
queen to
e4.
g4.
Oh, queen to g4. Okay.
Yeah, bishop e4 is possible, but if they go back, we definitely don't want to trade.
Mm,
So that doesn't lead to much.
yeah.
But let's say queen here. This is an interesting position because white has plenty of attacking ideas based on piece play. For example, bishop to f6
Mm-hmm.
or rook e5
Yep.
and then something like that. This is still very dangerous. I think that black will probably um, have to make some somewhat ugly move like f5 to make this a little bit less dangerous when we go here. And the position is not all that clear. White is a bit better, but it's not, I mean, it's clearly not a win or anything like that.
Yeah.
So I think from black's perspective, taking the knight, even though it looks dangerous, it was an option. It's not
Yeah.
something that would lose the game. And it has certainly the advantage of reducing the number of attackers. The g5 knight is definitely dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
He reduces the number of attackers. Now, the move in the game was h6. Um, bef- Before we look at the alternative g6, just what is the best move here? This is something I feel can find relatively quickly because
Well, I
we,
like queen h5.
yeah, of course, and not even consider, don't play, not moving the knight, right? This is the
Right.
thing. Queen h5, get another piece into the attack. And it's really not something where we have to calculate all that much. Black cannot take our knight in the first place, and it must be the right move.
Mm-hmm.
But we should consider g6 for a moment.
Oh, I like knight h7. Just like it,
Sorry,
knight h7 kind of pops out immediately. I don't know if it's good, but knight h7. If the king takes, then queen h5 is check and the pawn is pinned.
yeah,
And then king goes to g7 or sorry g7 or h or g8, I guess, and the queen is suddenly a little bit under attack. You know, like queen h6. Um, um, I mean, maybe black can push the f pawn at that point and get the king out of dodge if they feel like they're under attack.
what
And
is the precise position now? Like knight h7, king takes queen h5,
mm-hmm.
probably king g7.
King g7 to prevent queen h6. Yeah.
Hmm.
No, king g7. No, queen h6 is covered, right?
Yeah, you
Yeah.
can still do that. Queen h6, king g8.
Um, looking at rook e3.
Sorry, which one?
Uh, sorry, in the line that we're currently going through with queen h6 and then king g8, I was looking at
Yeah,
the move rook e3, um, but I don't know if it actually does anything. It's just a move.
let's let's start in this position after queen h6, king g8 with the most aggressive move. Like just fire everything and see what happens.
Oh,
That we have to do this first because that helps enormously.
yeah. Okay, give me a second to revisualize it. Bishop captures g6.
Yeah. The good thing about this move is we're threatening queen h7 checkmate.
Yes.
So they have to take it. There's no way around that. So we take on g6.
They take on g6. And yeah, and so king is checked. King goes h8. I mean, we have rook e5, threatening rook h5 mate.
Yes, very interesting. Yep. But just for practical purposes, we have a perpetual check, right?
Yes.
This is really important that we have a draw in hand. And this is, I think, very, from a practical point of view, just so important sometimes to, if we see that we have a draw,
We have an out.
we have a bailout, right?
Yeah.
We can, if we cannot calculate knight takes h7 to a win, which can easily happen. Maybe there isn't a win, or maybe it's so complicated that we cannot figure it out. We can still play the move and say, okay, we can reconsider once we are at this position with the perpetual, and then think about it like for 20 minutes or something like that, and really try to figure it out. And if we don't see anything, okay, it's a draw, it's not the end of the world. This approach is only a problem if you are somehow in an absolute must-win situation.
Right.
That could be a problem. But this isn't the case all that often. Often we're just happy to play with the draw in hand, and we can just go into this situation and then look again once we are there. Let's have a look at this. And this one, this. Okay, and now we would have this queen g6, h6 draw. Okay, once we are here, let's think about this for a moment. You mentioned the move rook e5, yeah?
Yeah.
A good idea, but black has a defense. Just one, but there is one.
Rook to f5.
Yes. It's just a, like elimination. Everything else doesn't work, but this works, and it is somewhat surprisingly, it's a draw. You can still give all the checks. At first you think, oh wait, I have this check, but then they go back.
And then f8 is covered.
Yeah, and here, I mean, you can easily, get into trouble
Yeah.
if you can still check on e6 and it continues and so on, but it's just maximum a draw. So rook e5, it doesn't win. Do we have something else maybe?
Bishop f4.
Sorry?
Bishop f4.
I think they take it.
Oh, okay. I was thinking bishop f4 and then queen h6, and then you pick up the rook. But I think you're right because I'm actually losing time there because it's not coming with any tempo. So the attack kind of fizzles out after that. I think like queen f6 and then the attack is over. So any other moves?
It's, by the way, it's not easy at all. Really not. It's not that you think, oh my God, I'm not seeing this. It's really not easy at all. But it's good to just like spot some ideas and kind of try to get closer to it. I think. Yeah.
What about queen h6, king g8, queen e6? No, that's the thing we were just looking at. Never mind,
Yeah.
because you rook
Basically,
f7.
they rook f7 and
Dang. Rook e3. The idea of rook g3?
Hmm. It looks a little bit slow.
Slow. Yeah.
Look slow.
Mm.
It's so difficult. I wonder if they saw it
Bishop,
in the game.
bishop g5? No, just bishop takes. Or just
Doesn't
even like rook,
doesn't
rook h,
threaten.
rook g8. Yeah, no, rook g8 would lose, but
Um,
hmm. Anyway.
Key point is that after this rook e5, which you correctly suggested is also the first move that I would check, they have this rook f5 thing. And
Sorry.
yeah,
What about g4?
oh wow, probably queen d5.
Yeah.
Like going for a big revenge mission.
Okay, okay, yeah. Dang. Okay, you can go ahead. Sorry.
It's really tricky. But the weird thing is, you always think here in terms of, okay, I need to give checks, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
always trying to make moves with the tempo, like queen here, like check here, go through all the permutations of the check. That doesn't really do much. The weirdest thing is the best move is to simply take the pawn.
Okay.
It looks strange, but what this does is it prepares check and rook g6.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, now that the pawn is gone on e6, we threaten rook e5, h5.
Okay.
And black, funny enough, has no defense. Rook f6 looks best. Then the check. King goes to g8. And now, this is the thing that nobody probably will see, is that exactly this move with rook g5 is winning.
Hmm.
It's super difficult. It's really super difficult. And I feel impossible to see, really impossible, not even for the best players in the world here. Nobody can calculate that. Impossible. But what everybody can see is that it's a draw, at least.
Yeah.
And then you get yourself into a situation where you are here, and maybe by looking at every single thing, yeah, maybe you can find such a thing. Still difficult. But the thing that I feel is important to remember is that having a draw in hand can be a very important weapon in a practical game,
Yeah.
where you can say, okay, I'm going to sacrifice there and then see what happens. I had something similar once in a game when I was playing for my first or second, I'm not quite sure, IM norm. So a really important game. I played against an international master. I had black, and they allowed the double bishop sacrifice, like on h2 and g2. I had black, like in that famous Lasker game
Yeah.
that you
Yeah.
where you sacrifice both bishops. And I was like, oh my god, yeah, he's allowing all that, yeah. And then I was starting to calculate, and yeah, I couldn't see a win, but at the same time, I saw that I have a draw. So I gave up the two bishops and then fought for 40 minutes and basically offered a draw because I didn't find anything. And in fact, there was nothing. And
Yeah.
we didn't have a computer. It was like almost, oh man, this is a long time ago, it's 25 years ago or something.
Uh-huh.
And we checked really thoroughly, like just with human brains. Afterwards, didn't find anything. It probably was just a draw. But it made sense from a practical point of view for me to first sacrifice and see it like on the board so that the calculation becomes easier.
Yeah.
I want to look at one little thing. Here, black has two moves, king g8 and king g7.
Mm-hmm.
And it can lead to the same variation because after king g7 check, you can take here. And as we have seen with this very difficult variation, it would win. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But in this position, I just would like if you look at this for a moment and think If there is an alternative, maybe that would be good as well, because white has a very strong alternative.
Uh,
It's
I like.
about like finding attacking ideas.
I'm looking at Rook E5 with the idea of after. I mean, I guess like Black can play F5, but then I just win the pawn on E6. But if Black tries to kick the Rook with, I don't know, Bishop to F6 or F6 just as a move, then I have Rook H5.
Yes, very good. That's a very strong attacking move, rook e5. And you saw that very quickly, very good. So you're in good shape.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I saw that you posted that you're doing daily training, yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
that really pays off. Yeah, it gives you tactical sharpness quite a bit. Yeah, so this is very good. It's a very good position for white. Rook h5 is a huge threat. Um, so let's say they play bishop f6, and what do we go? Rook h5.
Yeah, I think Rook H5.
Mhm. Okay, let me think about that. Have to go rook e8, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
How do we win now?
Bishop A3 seems like an idea. Bishop A3, Rook E7, Queen H7, King F8. Hmm. And Bishop A3 comes to mind because it's just cutting off the king from that square. Um,
Yeah, you're right. It looks attractive,
yeah. Um,
and I
how
think
long?
it wins. I think it
You think it
wins.
works? Okay. I was also just wondering, can we just do Queen H7 and then Bishop A3, since the king is stuck on that
Yeah,
diagonal? And I think, well, okay, Rook blocks is a problem because H8 is covered. Huh.
yeah, but I think we are crashing through if you take here.
Yeah, that's what I was
This
looking
kind
at.
of thing, I feel it would be strange. Let's say if
If this
this
doesn't
should,
work.
yeah, this is threatening, and what you cannot move the king, cannot move the rook. What is the move? Bishop g7. They probably just go rook a. No, that's not. How do we win here? I don't know it myself. I'm just like thinking about it. I remember most of the things because I did this example a while ago. But
I mean, it's slow, but okay. So Black is going to play Queen E8 if I don't do something fast. I was thinking Rook E1, but Queen E8. So
yeah,
um,
I think we can just take e6. Honestly,
with the Queen, yeah.
yeah. Now this one, and
Mm-hmm.
what we shouldn't totally forget is it looks like we are. It feels a bit like we have sacrificed the house and have to win by checkmate, but we have four pawns already for two pieces.
Yeah,
And if you pick up a little bit of material, it can be enough sometimes even to win just by material. But currently we are threatening rook f5, I think, which would be pretty
yeah.
deadly. Yeah, I don't see a move really for black. What exactly is the move? Pieces look
I
ridiculous.
I think
I
King
cannot.
E8's the only move.
King e8. So, how do we kill this? How do we kill this off? Interesting. Queen g6 maybe?
Queen G6, King D7.
Yeah.
This seems hard to
It seems
stop the
hard to believe.
king. It seems hard to stop the king from escaping somehow. So maybe just you just cash in. Well, here, yeah, rook h,
Something like that.
and
I'm
then
not
rook g8.
fully, not fully, not fully convinced. Like,
Yeah.
feels like there could be something even more powerful, but I don't see it currently.
What was the prior move?
You know what we can do. The rook, like if you go here, they don't have. If you take first, then they have rook g8,
Mm-hmm.
and now they cannot move the rook anyway.
Because
Where
it has to defend the
they
bishop.
have to keep this somewhat defended, and now we are threatening to take e7 and g7, so we win the moment.
Okay. Yeah.
We win the exchange, and then at the end of it, we have like rook and like a million pawns
Yeah. Different move
against.
order, basically.
Yeah, it's
Also. Oh, sorry. Never mind. I thought I saw something, but I didn't. Never mind.
it's a twisted or reverse move order. So this is an interesting attacking idea to keep in mind, rook e5, which you saw very quickly, which is good because this is not such an obvious idea, I feel. So in the game, and I cannot go too much over the time because
Yeah.
I have to make a little bit of a break myself before I get to the second session. I want to show how the game concluded
Okay.
and look at one or two moments maybe. H6, Queen H5. We talked about that already, that this was the continuation and looks pretty logical. Black played bishop to D5, covering E6 a bit and still dreaming about using the square. And here it's interesting to see how white continued. The next two moves, I think, are something that is good to try to find. It's not so easy, but it's a good exercise. It's
Bishop g6 sticks out to me.
bishop. Okay.
I'm not sure that's good, but it sticks out because it's threatening f7. And if f7 takes, then queen takes. If the pawn takes, I take with the pawn, but it's too slow. I was going to think if I can get a pawn on g6 and a queen on h7, that'd be great, but I don't think I can do that. So, what else? And there's also like knight f7, maybe, but rook takes and then bishop g6 again, but
It's definitely something where we want to check all of those moves, right? Have
right,
plenty.
yeah.
Knight f7, maybe knight takes e6, yeah, all kinds of sacrifices.
What about rook takes e6, and then if bishop takes e6, knight takes e6, f takes e6, queen g6. There's a lot of that's a lot of material, but
Yeah, yeah.
basically, like if I can get the f7 pawn away from being on f7, then I have queen g6, and if I have the bishop and the battery of the queen, I'm making some threats against the king. But I'm not sure that's like quite it. But that's what I'm looking at, and
But
yeah,
one issue there could be that queen h7 is a check, but it's not necessarily mate.
right.
And if they, I mean, sometimes you have this thing like queen h7 check,
What
king
about
f7.
bishop h7 check, king h8? Knight captures f7. Rook captures f7. Queen f7. I don't think that quite works because the pawn will just drop.
It's very it's very easily possible to get lost here in all the
Yeah.
different ideas that you have. It's interesting to see that the solution, the best move and played in the game, it looks amazingly simple once you see it. Um, and you can easily overlook the move because there are so many other flashy alternatives. So if we look at forcing moves, we mostly think about checks and captures. But here there's a forcing move in a way that's even simpler. What he played is, I can tell you the move and then you tell me why this is strong. Played knight h7.
Yeah, I was starting to look at that one. Yeah, so knight h7 is strong because it's just immediately threatening the rook. So if the rook moves, then the f7 square is weak, and knight h7 also uncovers a sacrifice on h6 with the bishop on c1.
And exactly this is the point. Like after knight h7, if we can just take the exchange on f8, it's enough. We win the
Yes.
exchange and we still have an attack. It's not like we are
Right.
winning the exchange and we have to retreat everything. We still attack and we have one material. So after knight h7, it can only be rook e8. And you already said we are opening up the diagonal for bishop takes h6. And this is the thing. If we calculate this a little bit, like knight h7, rook e8, bishop takes h6, g takes h6, queen takes h6. What about this position? What is our threat? We want to, just this is the final thing to figure out. After this queen takes h6 at the end, what is our threat?
Okay, I'm just gotta revisualize it. Okay. Knight h7, rook e8, bishop h6, gh6, queen h6. Just knight f. Knight. I'm looking at knight f6 check, bishop takes f6, queen h7 check, king. Oh, maybe it's bishop h7 instead. Yeah, it's bishop
Bishop,
h7, king h8, bishop g6, king g8, queen h7 check, king f8, and then queen f7 mate.
yes, very good. Yeah, that is the key line here that you have to see, and that is how the game continued. Not with the mate, that
Uh-huh.
can still prevent that, but this is the thing that you have to see that here, this is the threat
Yeah.
with this mating pattern that you set, and here black is down to just one move, which is f5. Yeah, you have to stop this,
Yeah.
and I mean, we don't have to look at till the very end. Here, white has a final very nice attacking move. It's one of those invite everybody to the party kind of things. How do we win here with white? I hope I remember this correctly, actually. Yeah, I do.
I mean, rook e3 with the idea
Yeah,
of rook g3.
yep. Yeah, we want to have everybody playing, and it's nice. Black takes this to cover g3, and now white wins with the very flashy continuation. Rook g3 check, takes, check, and now this one.
Lovely.
And now queen h6 mate and queen h7 mate.
Yeah.
And black cannot stop them both. It's really, really nice.
Yeah, I like that.
So I think he gave some revenge checks, and now I think. Oh, I didn't even remember that it took so long. So, wow. Okay, the game. I didn't know that this is still going to move 31. I thought Black resigned much earlier
Uh-huh.
because they easily could have done that after this was on the board. Yeah, but okay,
Yeah.
there's some more moves. I think you did very well here. Actually, so many good attacking ideas. I mean, I think you're in good shape for the tournament.
Yeah,
Looking,
I hope so.
yeah, looking forward to watch. Yeah, I have to play. Yeah, I think it's on Sunday, starting. What is it? 6 my time. What is it?
It's like
Your
9. It's like 9 a.m. my time.
9 a.m. Oh, really?
Yeah.
So it's in the afternoon. Oh, cool. I have to check that because I thought I could watch because I have something that I need to play online in the evening for my chess club. Then I felt, oh, I cannot watch, but maybe I misread that then. So looking forward to watch and keep my fingers crossed.
Yeah.
I think for the final day tomorrow, maybe do a little bit of practice games of the time control. That makes sense if you have time. Do some tactics and just like have fun. I think it's going to be a fun event.
Yeah. I agree. I think it's gonna be fun.
Okay, so I think I have to run because got
Yeah.
the next like in about 20
Yeah.
minutes.
Get your rest.
I hope you enjoyed it, and it was yeah, it was a good time. I enjoyed looking at all the tactics with you.
Yeah. It was my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Yeah, okay, I was happy to do it. So yeah, again, good luck. I hope to watch, and yeah, see you.
All right. See you,
Bye.
Christoph. Thanks.